do this. Okay. Hi all, I hope you're safe and well. Welcome to the video. So I'm solo today and I thought, well, let's not waste this opportunity. Let's get out and have a bit of practice. Of course, the problem being an instructor is that when you do go to training in the hall, you are busy spending your whole time teaching people and you don't often get a lot of time to practice yourself. That's obviously compounded by the 18 months we've all had with isolation and being out of practice and all the rest of it. That's not how I do it, okay? I go for a cutting drill as if I was sparring, but I'll practice some drills, okay? So I might do the covers drill with one-handed. Then what I'll do is some Posta Transitions, okay? Take some principles from the manuscript, okay? So I will take, for example, the principle of braking. So for the past 4 or 5 years I've done a lot of travel with work, and I like to think I've gotten pretty good at solo practice. It's obviously not as good as training with people in person, but needs must, okay? And I've actually landed on quite a set routine, if you like, for how I like to go about practicing when I'm on my own. And I thought I would share at least one approach to this video today, maybe to help other people out when they're looking at their own solo training. So I actually have a pretty set structure to how I do this, and I thought I would just run through it to video. So obviously I stretch, I warm up, etc. A lot of my solo training tends to focus around unarmed and dagger, quite often without a dagger, because I'll be in hotel gyms or whatever, and you can't very well go and take, even a wooden trainer would look a bit weird, wouldn't it? But when I do solo practice with a sword, which I suppose a lot of people have gotten pretty good at, during COVID, then my routine is basically as follows, okay? So I'll do a stretch, I'll do a warm-up, and then what I'll do is I'll do some cutting drills, okay? Now what I'm going to do is just give you the sort of a flavour of the sort of things that I'm looking at when I'm doing my cutting drills, and indeed all of this, okay? So when I'm doing cutting drills, I'm focused on function over form, okay? So I've said before to video, there's nothing pretty about the way that I do a cutting drill, okay? You will see pretty, you will see good arcing, good structure, good mechanics, you'll see all of that. That's not how I do it, okay? I go for a cutting drill as if I was sparring, okay? I do what Fury tells me, I start and finish in a guard, okay? And that's pretty much the instance and case everywhere, okay? Even with the first couple of plays of Largo, I'm cutting out from a posta, I'm meeting in a posta, in this case Posta Frontale, and even when I do the cut around, I'm doing the cut, and if I don't hit anything, I'm coming, for example, back into coda longa. I'm always trying to do what Fury tells me to start and finish in a guard, okay? So I'm working through my cutting drills, one and two-handed, okay? So I'm cutting, I'm slipping back into posta, I'm cutting, I'm thrusting back into posta, and I'm mixing all that together, okay? Rarely these days do I actually focus on a single discipline at a time. So more often than not, when I'm doing cutting drills, I'm two-handed, one-handed posta, one-handed fendente, two-handed again, two-handed satani, back into a posta. I'm mixing the one and two-handed, and indeed the short point, the half sword. I'm mixing all of that together, okay? Because that's just how I like to do things now, okay? I'll do that for a while. Then I'll choose a couple of drills from our curriculum. Everybody's got their own drills out there, so you don't really need to know those, but I'll practice some drills, okay? So I might do the covers drill with one-handed, okay? I'll cut back to my opponent, my imaginary opponent. I'll cut back. I'll do inside cover, outside cover. I'll play around with different distances, different ranges. I'll come offline a bit more extreme. I'll stay static. I'll basically just pick a couple of drills, work through them. It requires a good imagination because I'm always visualizing an opponent and what they're doing as well. So I'm covering, I'm checking a hand, dropping back, I'm covering, I'm pushing an elbow. Then I'm starting to add in my own actions as well. Okay, so I'll take those drills as a basis and I'll start to add in my own actions. For example, our beats drill, okay? Again, people outside of our group don't need to know these drills, but I'm using this as an example. So one-handed offline, there's a beat, there's a two-handed cut back, and I'll practice recovering back out into a safe distance as an example. Then what I'll do is some Posta Transitions, okay? This is normally my time to just get my breath back, okay? When I'm doing Posta Transitions, or guards, but posture in this example, I am focusing on smoothly going from point A to point B in a sort of mechanical but realistic way. So for example, Posta di Donna, okay? I'm doing what Fury tells me. This is also a guard and a posta, but he says with the Volta Stabile I can fight to the side and behind, okay? So it's things like that that I will pull out the manuscript, and in that session I will just focus on what that looks like. You know, I will do Volta Stabiles, I will turn it into the guard, you know, I will play around with posta, focusing on, for example, all of my low posta, yeah, focusing on smoothly transitioning, Coda Longa, Porta di Ferro, Cingali. I'll focus on how little I actually need to move my arms to smoothly execute a transition between those posta. I'll do the same with the higher ones. I'll practice coming from this Posta di Donna with a cut to a step back to this Posta di Donna. I'm basically looking at just taking a breather, slowing things down, mechanically just making sure that for me, how I like to move, my structure, my preference is all just starting to come together in that exercise, and that I'm keeping it consistent, always with a focus on how I would move if someone was in front of me. So there's no flash, I'm not being flary with anything. Some of it's very clunky because some of my motion is very clunky, injuries, preference, so on and so forth. I'm literally just practicing different ways to move between my posta, yeah, with a bit of intent, losing some distance, coming offline, and so on and so forth. That helps because your posta are very, very key. It's all the important stuff that happens before blades come together. Super, super important. Okay, I'm here, okay? I can transition my way forward and keep my way nice and back, okay? We're going to basically use Finestra to dictate again the kind of attack that I want to do. We're going to do it in two ways. If you take up Posta di Donna, okay? I'm going to use Finestra like this, and basically what am I doing with the point of the sword? I'm threatening him with it, right? I'm basically saying I'm going to thrust at you. The reason why I'm doing that, well, there's two reasons why I'm doing that. Because he's up on his right shoulder, if I thrust at him, I can reasonably expect him to try and cover it. Yeah? So again, I'm threatening at the point, I can expect him to cover it. Now I want him to cover it, so that I can come close and go through. Again, I'm dictating a predictable outcome. Yeah? And if he's stupid and he doesn't, well then I'll kill him anyway. Yeah? So that's the whole point. Finestra is not only designed to come up into, to take a centre line, but it's also something to collapse and wind off of. Okay, so that's the next one, okay? Same principle, get close, thrust. If he covers, cut around or close, okay? If he doesn't cover, well then you've just won, okay? Then what I'll do is I'll take some principles from the manuscript, okay? So I will take, for example, the principle of breaking the thrust, okay? I will start in a selection of different posta, and I'll just work through lots of different permutations of that kind of action. So I'll start in Finestra, I'll imagine the thrust coming in, I'll do an offline and sort of braking action at the same time, I'll practice the thrust with a step and I'll recover back into a posta. Or I will do the offline motion first, break it to the ground, false edge up, true edge down, and slip back out into Cingali at distance. Basically, I'm taking a play or a principle and I'm practicing different ways to enter that, okay? All with that imagination, always imagining the thrust coming in, coming offline, the risk of what I've done, and I'll mix it up. And some things I'll do will be textbook from the manuscript, some things will be experimentation. That's my time, it's my time to practice. Incidentally, I'll also do things like that from the other side as well. Step and break, false edge up, true edge down, and I'll even practice proper recovery as if I was actually sparring. Me and Grisada send my point in if it's online. There's a cover, grab hold of their sword, and I'll give them something to think about. Recovering back into distance, one-handed cover following a big cut to me. I'll thrust, I'll move offline, playing around with Cingali. There's a villain strike, so I've taken a big hit, I've let it go to ground with my hands. There's a cover and a kick, nice and just keeping it probing. Take a big cut to me, let it roll, and just wheel over with a cut back out into distance. Nice and high again, There's a turn, that's false point, so I've cut them, I've turned it into a half swording thrust, alley point to the ferro. There's a cover, pommel strike and a roll over, that's a stretto chingali. There's a beat of their weapon and a cut back down to their head as they recover into distance. Going on distance, there's a one-handed cover, ligadura a small thrust and a pommel strike. I'll do all of that. This morning I redid the villain strike because I had an issue. I did a video a couple of weeks ago and one of my foot actions was a little bit clunky because I hadn't practiced it for nearly 2 years. So today I focused on that action. So I will imagine, okay? I'll imagine that action. So I'll come up and over, cut down, thrust, recover, yeah? I'm almost sparring on my own, okay? That's what I'm going for, okay? So that will be like the next element. And then what I do as part of a cool down is I will go back to either a drill or my cutting drills, okay? And I'll just slow everything absolutely right down, okay? So I will, this is part of my cool down now before I have a little stretch at the end, especially because I'm getting older, but I will practice very slowly, very purposefully and intentionally, just offline, fendente, step, recovery, yeah, thrust, another posta, recovery, yeah. I'm very purposeful with all of my offline actions that I like to do. We're out, okay, we're stepping off, we're recovering, and so on and so forth. Slow everything absolutely right down. Or I could do that with a couple of drills as well. So I could go back to one-handed. I could do, for example, what we would call our breaks drill. Break, break, cut, yeah, cut. And I'm just slowing everything down, okay, which is actually quite therapeutic and relaxing. That's how I do it. It doesn't need to be a super long video, but obviously when I'm looking at different plays, when I'm isolating certain things, that could be anything, right? That could be anything. That could be exchange of points, recovery, it could be a couple of techniques, it could be whatever I want it to be. But I'm building up the intensity, I'm peaking at plays and execution, then I'm just winding it back down again. Half an hour, 45 minutes, job done. That's my solo training. So I hope it was useful. Bit of a random one, but thanks for your time, and until the next one. What's also your friend is Frontale as well. Frontale is great against positions like this, but it's also great for actual attacks at you too. When you see people sparring, and we won't talk about sparring as such, but what you'll see is that the exchange will happen and Incrusado will be found and they kind of either car crash or they spin off of each other. Yeah, they do all these fanciful, wonderful things. The whole thing about, especially Frontale, is if you take it, it's a position you used to fight from. So keep it, keep that position. No matter what happens, you can transition between both sides and you've got a decent cover for most of the high attacks you're going to get. So if Simon sends in a fendente, Frontale, I'll keep it, okay, no matter what happens. If I don't have an opening to do a play, to do a technique, I kind of do, but let's say I don't, yeah, I'll just keep this position. I'm not going to let things drift to places that I'm unfamiliar with, because that's when it becomes a mess, right? Keep it there. If you swap sides or the cut was on that side, it's fine. I can stay just over the other foot. So from the right shoulder, it's just over my left knee, and I'm just catching it like this. Doesn't matter where I catch it. Right at the end, it's okay. The closer I get, the more I'm at risk of hitting my knuckles, but you know, I've got gloves on, I'm not bothered. Right here is perfect, okay? If the attack is on the other side, this stays forward. It's just made over the other side. Don't try and do any of this kind of stuff that you see in other schools. It's like this, okay? It's just Frontale. And that's it. So then you take one off this side, yeah, moving, past it, come around the side, past it there, now we just start from that shoulder. So I'm moving and moving, and back in there, check. Then we move again, I'm up, yeah, check, no problem. Just Frontale, okay? Very dominant position. You can sit behind that pretty much all day.